Welcome to the virtual Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for the Suzette Veneti Show. Please welcome to your screen, Suzette Veneti.
Hey everybody, it's 5:03 on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, February 7th. That means if you bet on the Packers, you lost. Sorry, it's the Buccaneers and the game's happening. I don't know. Look, I'm a drag princess. Do I care when the Steelers are in the Super Bowl? Okay. Also, I know, Bears jersey. Lost a bet to David Shapiro, who's not even here tonight. Lame. Wore the jersey. Welcome to the Suzette Veneti Show, where if you joke about the host about what her position in football would be and you said, "So Suzette, are you a tight end?" she'd respond, "Nope, I'm a split end." And that's because she actually knows football and has self-awareness and made a joke about her hair. That joke would be outdated, though, since the goddess Liz came into my life. But I digress. Happy Super Bowl Sunday, and welcome to the Suzette Veneti Show. It's 5:03, so if you placed a season opening bet on the Seahawks to win the championship this year, sorry, babe, you lost. Really, though, split end is a position in football. Look it up. Okay. Shout out to Matt Ivy, who watches every show. Thank you. I don't know who watches the show unless you guys tell me. And Matt told me. So thank you, love. I appreciate you watching. Brian Moss from Meriden, Idaho, won the lottery for the 6th time. But he still lives in Idaho. So God's funny like that, right? JK, Idaho, please keep watching. Wisconsin pharmacist who destroyed 500 doses of vaccine believes that the earth is flat, says the FBI. Look, here's the thing. He also believes that they make people fertile and put microchips in people. What's funny is the FBI didn't have to out him like that and say that he was one of those people that believed all those things, but they did. They were just like, yo, that pharmacist was crazy. So nice going, FBI. Hilaria Baldwin has released a statement that she is so sorry and feels what she did could be wrong. Ariel Ben Abraham of New Jersey opened a shipping box from China on Monday, expecting to find accessories for his clothing company. Instead, he found a bundle of jumbo-sized hockey sticks intended for Washington Capitals star Zdeno Chara. Chara's 67-inch sticks were delivered to the wrong address by FedEx. Chara, the tallest player in NHL history, is 6'9", which is why his sticks are so ridiculously tall. Ben Abraham, obviously a Jewish man, correctly stated that sticks are taller than he is. Jewish men. Am I right? I just want to say, I'm also 67 inches tall at 5'5". So if Chara wants to handle me, he's not a looker. He's actually kind of weird looking, but he's a great hockey player. And also he has a 67-inch stick. So Valentine's Day is coming and your girl's lonely. Leave me alone. The Chiefs had a close call this week as their team barber tested positive for COVID mid-haircut. Not only was star quarterback Pat Mahomes in line to get a COVID test from the barber before the barber swept away the room by team doctors, he was mid-haircut on backup center Daniel Kilgore. Now, Kilgore has a sideways mullet because he was stopped mid-haircut. So it's like long on one side and like business on the other, or something. Half the man's hair is cut. The Chiefs had to make cuts and trim their roster accordingly to make sure the players exposed to COVID are on the barbicide list. Susan B. Anthony was discovered in an attic in Geneva, Washington on Wednesday. Like, wow. She's 200 years old this year, and she was just chilling in the attic. Oh. Okay. Her photographs were discovered in the attic. While she was fully clothed, junior high boys everywhere have described the discovery by spelling the word attic. Marilyn Manson dropped by his label amidst allegations of domestic abuse. The label was quoted as saying, let me get this right, "Yeah, we're sorry we dropped him anyway, because, like, it's not the 90s anymore, and what he did, like, nothing for us lately. But by dropping him now, we achieve the performative action of doing the right thing, and that gets us in the news for dropping a bad person, making us look good, even though we knew about it while he was going on with it, and we did nothing because he was making us money. But don't remember that part. Just remember that we fired the bad man when everything became public. I mean, just remember we fired the bad man. So, good on you, record company. Reports are that J.J. Watt coped with trade rumors by drinking on the beach in Hawaii. Stars, they're just like us. If we could afford to fly to Hawaii and buy drinks for ourselves, they'd be just like us. Robinhood, the trading app, wrote an apology letter for stopping people from making money off of hedge funds and saving the hedge funds. The company has promised to be more transparent in the future and will steal money from the users in a more honest and open way. No joke here. Dolly Parton isn't taking the Medal of Freedom from Joe Biden. She turned it down twice from Trump when he offered to give it to her, but she said her husband was sick, so she couldn't accept it, and now if she accepts it, it's going to feel like a political thing because she's accepting it from Biden, not Trump. Look, Dolly Parton is a queen, so do what you want, Miss Parton. Reports are that during Trump's talk on January 6th, Parler turned to civil war, which is amazing because with the amount of typos and grammatical errors on Parler, I'm surprised anyone has the tolerance to study the nonsense that comes out of there. Ancient teeth prove that Neanderthals and early modern humans had sex. The teeth were found in the region of the English Channel, around 48,000 years old, and have traits of Neanderthals and early modern humans. Also, scientists discovered a cave painting where the Neanderthals' friends were saying, "Tell me more, tell me more. Did you get very far?" Sorry, I just do Grease jokes when I can. Don't post your COVID vaccination card on social media, says the Better Business Bureau. Although if people are reading your Facebook can't figure out your name, I don't think there's a risk of them stealing your identity. So, Jenny Cudd, who is charged with participating in a capital terrorist attack, has asked a federal judge to allow her to, during COVID, go on a work retreat to a spot near Cancun. Cudd is unrepentant for her actions during a terrorist attack, saying, "Fuck yes, I am proud of my actions. I fucking charged the Capitol. Hell yes, I am proud of my actions. I would absolutely do it again." She said that entering the Capitol and breaking down Nancy Pelosi's office door was the highlight of her life. Look, I'm just trying to figure out how to get a job where I can get a work retreat to Mexico. And she's a florist. So maybe I'm in the wrong because, yeah. And before we get to our next contributor, one of my favorite people, he's the T. I can hear it whistling. This is a lead-in for him. Tamika Smith, Method Man's wife, said of her marriage, and Wendy Williams, "My marriage is solid. My husband continues to enjoy a successful career, and Wendy will forever be one of the most miserable bitches on the planet." Yeah. And for more on that, let's cut to the man who brings the tea when it's whistling. Peers and queers, help me in welcoming my friend, great follow, great person, Clifton Ellison.
Hey, Suzette, how you doing?
I am all right. How are you, love?
Or should I say, how you doing? Because we're talking about Miss Wendy. Method Man's wife really tore into her ass, and it was one of the best reads ever because what Wendy did was fucked up. A couple years ago, she revealed her cancer diagnosis to the world before she could even tell her own family. There's just some lines that you just don't cross, and I feel like that's one of them. And Wendy just has a way. I mean, yeah, she's messy and she talks about gossip, but she has a way of doing it that is just like, sometimes even I'm just like, did she just say that? Like asking Mariah Carey, like, when's the last time she sucked dick? Or my favorite is asking Whitney Houston about the drugs and Whitney Houston cussing her out on the radio, which is probably one of the best 30 minutes that you could spend in your life.
I'm sorry, did you say she asked Mariah Carey when the last time she sucked dick was?
Yeah, and it's actually on her documentary that aired on Lifetime right after her movie, where Wendy Williams is on her couch, wig disheveled, look like she just got off a shift at Hot Rods, just disheveled, makeup smeared, on the couch eating caviar with Doritos, and quote, It is a ghetto party in your mouth. That's what she said.
Look,
And I low-key want to try, but I'm just like, caviar, I don't know how it tastes. Have you had caviar before?
no, I haven't. I just want to say, as a newly anointed hair queen, fix your wig, Wendy Williams.
Yeah.
I just got to say it when I can.
It was very shifted. But, she's just been going through a lot. The movie was messy. I knew Wendy was messy and had a crazy life. It kind of made you feel bad for her because, she was bullied as a kid about her weight. Her parents put her on like a strict diet to lose weight. And then she was raped when she was in the radio world. And then miscarriages and her husband doing all this type of stuff. And I'm just like, damn, girl, like you've been through some shit. You're messy, but we see how you got to this road that you got. Like it kind of opens the curtain on her life though. But I will say, and I'm going to hell for laughing at this, in the movie they reenact when she fainted on the show. Mm-hmm. It was to the T. The costume, how she was saying your next caress, and you have to check it out. It was a nice 2 hours of just mess. Just good, solid mess.
That I think maybe I shouldn't speak on because I like to reenact myself passing out from drinking every Sunday at brunch.
But I feel like yours wouldn't be as like messy. It'll be fun, messy, but not like, oh my God, is she dead? Like, yeah, because it was like, oh my God, is she dead? Like, it was just
right. It'd be like, let's get her some water and some food instead of like, ooh, let's get her some Betty Ford clinic.
Girl. So, have you been keeping up with Drag Race?
No, because I don't know where to watch it.
Oh, girl, I'm gonna give you my login to the Miss Sling. Sling is an app that you can watch TV on East Coast time. Oh. So I get to watch it like 5 o'clock on Fridays, and it's so nice to watch. I'm done with all my TV before 8 o'clock, and it's just like the most wonderful thing ever because staying up till 11 o'clock to watch shit, I'm too old, girl. I can't do it no more.
Look, I get it. Black don't crack, Suzette don't Corvette. But we need our beauty sleep.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. It looks good for both of us, but it comes with cost.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the Queens, and if you haven't watched the show, girl, it's Sunday. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk about it.
Talk about it.
I was very sad about who went home, which is the legendary Miss Tamisha Iman. Mm-hmm. But also, I was like, damn, girl, you did all. So basically, since you don't know, she was supposed to be on last season, but she didn't get to make it because she had cancer. And then she came back, did a surgery and everything like that. She's good to go. And then you find out on this past episode, I'm probably going to mispronounce the word, but she had a colonoscopy bag on her.
That is the correct pronunciation.
And I was like, you are sitting here sewing, crafting, doing all this shit and not saying a word about what you got going on. And she was like, I don't want people to feel sorry for me or anything like that. And I was like, you know what? You may not have won this one though, but you're going to do just fine. And hell, she may come back and be on All Stars and win it. Who knows? But yeah, look her up on YouTube. She's been doing drag since the 90s. Oh. She had so many wonderful performance videos and stuff like that. I'm going to send you some links. You'll know some of her family. If you've seen that video with the drag queen that did Wonder Woman and she came down from the ceiling into the splits. Yes. I need to hear. That's her drag dog.
Oh. Mm-hmm. You know what's funny is the two queens that were talking about that. Well, me being one of them. Me and Apple were talking. The two queens that are not going to come down from the ceiling doing a splits. We're talking about like, wow, look at that queen. Also, I couldn't.
My knees just popped thinking about it.
I have to say, I said you said the word right, but I didn't know what the word was. I believe you meant colostomy bag.
There you go. Yes, it's when
Which I mean, a colonoscopy bag. A colonoscopy bag would be a thing.
Yeah. It was. I was just like, wow, like you you really did all of this. Because I know if I'm minorly inconvenienced, I don't want to do shit. Don't ask me for nothing. Like, I just want to be left alone. But you flew across the country in the middle of a pandemic and did all this with that going on with your body. Like, I have to take my hat off to her. And also, too, I know every season of Drag Race is always arguments and things like that. But, you know, all of them love each other at the end of the day, and they're sisters. No one's really, like, too vile with each other. But there's another girl in there, Candy Muse. Mm-hmm. She's, you know, fun, New York drag queen. How loud she was Aja's drag sister, but not anymore. But anyways, her and Tamisha were getting into it. And, of course, you know how Drag Race culture does. They get nasty. The internet start sending death threats and things like that. So remember how I was talking about how RuPaul never really addressed that or the racism in the community? They finally did.
Shocked me into having good hair.
I know. I was just like, I'm glad that you did it. But it's also kind of like, girl, we're on season 13. You could have said something on season 2, season 3. You know, I know a couple people that have been on that show and they've received some very nasty things in their inboxes. To this day, their season has not been on TV since like 6-7 years, and they're still getting messages. And I'm just like, people are just vile. But yeah, they finally addressed it. And I was just like, okay, we're going to need you to do a little bit more, but it's about time, because these girls, they don't deserve that shit. No. Yeah, there may be contestants who may do stupid things on camera, but it's a TV show. It's not that deep.
Well, but fans get crazy.
That Britney Spears documentary that came out this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, girl, even if you're not a fan of her, looking back on the stuff that we as a whole culture put her through, like they had an interviewer on there, and I remember this when she first came out. There was a controversy about her breast size. You're asking a 17-year-old girl about her breast size as an interview question? That would have fly today. That interview would have been hashtagged and canceled out. And Diane Sawyer talking about her virginity, and then like just the things that they were asking her when she was like 17, 18, 19. I look back at it now with adult eyes, and I'm just like, this wouldn't have flied today. And Family Feud having a question on Family Feud, which I'm going to send you the YouTube clip, asking, we surveyed 100 people, what did Britney Spears lose this year? Number 1, her mind. Number 2, her hair. Number 3, her... What? Like, it was just disgusting. And then the whole conservatorship and pulling back the curtain on that, because it's always kind of been like a hush-hush kind of thing. But like, you have to sign an NDA just to work with her. You can't use your phone around her. Like, there's so many different technicalities from this conservatorship that special pulled the blanket on. Forgive me, she's been drinking. But just watch it, Suzette. It's on Hulu. Do you have Hulu?
I do.
Okay, it's on there. When you watch it, you're gonna have a newfound respect for her, but you're also gonna get real angry.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's how I feel about Britney Spears.
Mm-hmm.
I think, is she the greatest singer ever? Not the way she sings, but as far as performers go, entertainers,
mm-hmm.
like
one of the best.
Yeah, easily one of the best. She made a career for herself, and whatever's going on with her conservatorship. Let me ask you this: Does it answer all the questions? Will I not have any more questions?
They actually interview her longtime assistant. They interview people that were on the conservatorship but got kicked off. Like, it's very like, it's not just a bunch of Entertainment Tonight hearsay kind of thing.
Okay.
Like, it's actual, like they're speaking to people that are actually involved and have been involved. Unfortunately, none of the family was on it. And of course, she wasn't on it though, but they got really in-depth, and a lot of the things that are on there will really surprise you, like not able to drive, not able to use her credit card to go to McDonald's, not able to do a lot of the things that we do every day, but you have released 4 albums, gone on 3 tours, and hosted TV shows and everything else, which are things that if you told me to do, I would probably go in fetal position and not know what to do. So what is it? Like I think that's the question that we're all wondering, like, why? What like we get at the moment it was probably necessary though, but for 13 years to keep somebody on this and say they're not capable, but you got them on stage. So that's why she's not performing. She's actually on work strike right now until her daddy is out the picture. So
I mean, if that's what you got to do, and like it's obviously, I'm very interested because of everything that she's been through. I also feel compelled to answer 32 double D and ha 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 no. So those are
yeah, that's it. How she handled those situations, I would have been on TV cussing people out left and right. Like, how are you going to ask me about my virginity and my breast size at 17, 18 when you're a grown ass man? Like, that's nasty. You don't. Mm-mm.
She's been through a lot.
Yeah. But I just want her to be happy. If that means no more performances, I'm fine with that. Just be happy and let the girl be free. That's all.
Look, she's given us all of the performance. I mean, could she give more? Sure. But she's given enough performances. We are good on her. Like, her legacy, in my opinion, is set.
Yeah. But anything else going on this weekend, Suzette, besides the game that I'm not watching? But I'll see what the weekend does on YouTube because I'm not really feeling it. But
That's okay. No, we had brunch. It was good. No football theme, although I wore this for my walkout and Helen wore a referee because football. And that's it.
So you mean to tell me Taryn didn't tackle you, girl?
She couldn't catch me. I am quick.
Girl, there'll be no touchdowns.
Oh, she's like Taryn is a lockdown defender.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's mama right there. We can say that with laughter because we know she'll say the same thing.
She would linebacker and drag. So.
Well, I love you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
I love you too. Thank you for coming on. Enjoy the weekend when you look him up. I will try to catch up on the Britney Spears, Free Britney, and also on Drag Race so I can talk intelligently with you about it next week.
Yes.
Hey. What?
And when I give you my login, you can also watch all the Housewives too, so you can be caught up on that.
Yes, I can. Do you have Valentine's plans? Will you be here?
Girl, what's that? Free chocolates?
I don't know. I don't have any, but I don't want to assume that everybody's me.
Candy when it goes on sale the next day.
That's the best way.
Mm-hmm.
I might have some at brunch. Just might.
Okay. Well, she'll stop by, I'll make sure to wear my Sunday's best.
Yes. Okay. Clifton, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on.
I love you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Peers and Queers, Clifton Ellison. Send him some coin. Also, while you're at it, above my pretty little head, send Stab Comedy some coin because it's still in a pandemic. Still not able to sell tickets to shows. So, bringing you entertainment. I'm leaving out personal pronouns, I think. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know grammar. I did brunch today. I'm tired. I'm drunk. With that, we're going to get to my interview guest. So I hope you will join me in welcoming a Central Valley queen in residency, but not in my heart. I am so excited to have her on. This is going to be such a fun interview. She is amazing. You can catch her performing live when the world is live. But in the meantime, you can catch her on the internet. We're going to play one of her videos. We have it queued up. And so enjoy this video, and then we'll bring her on. Here we go. Please check out this video from Katana Rei. peers and queers, please join me in welcoming to the show Katana Rei. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Everything
absolutely.
Working okay? Cool.
How your video is amazing. Let's talk
thanks.
about that right away. You make some amazing videos. That's just one of many that you've made. What's your background for making these videos?
Well, first of all, I had a lot of time on my hands during quarantine. That's what helped me the most during those digital drag shows. I haven't really made one, I think, since then. That was like last summer. But originally, like my first dabbling in technical, like even social media stuff, it was video based because I first was out there, put myself out there into the world on YouTube. But my dad actually is a photographer / videographer. He's been doing that stuff for like decades now. Mostly photography back in like the 80s and stuff. And then he went into videography stuff. So I used to be like basically his free PA. I would just carry his like lighting and stuff for him and hold the microphone, stuff like that. And that was like when I was around in high school age. And he basically, he didn't really like sit down and show me, but I kind of just observed. And I didn't really think I'd ever get into video editing because it seems so tedious and like boring. But as I got into YouTube, having the equipment accessible for me, like an HD camera and a video editing program and all that stuff, was pretty convenient. So I had to kind of teach myself how to use those things. And then before like even, the pandemic happened, I always wanted to do these kind of videos because, for me, like when I have a concept for drag, it's usually more like it's a visual thing, but it's not like I'm going to stand on stage and perform this. It's always like, I want to have this going on and that going on and this going on. And you don't always, more often than not, you don't have the venue or like the backdrop or whatever you want to complete that vision. I think that goes for a lot of drag queens or any performer in general. So you kind of have to dumb it down a little bit to make it fit into a club or something. But I've always kind of wanted to have these kind of elaborate visuals. And then during quarantine, I just kind of sat down and watched a bunch of like VFX videos, and I'd be like, okay, well, I don't have, at the time, I didn't have like Adobe Premiere or like Final Cut or whatever, any of those like high-end ones. The one I use is pretty like, basic, but I made it work for what I have. And that's kind of always done it. It's always just been like finding what like people are actually doing for like short films and mainstream movie stuff and kind of learning how it works and then dumbing it down for myself to be able to do it and then just trying it out and see what happens.
But you do it so well. I mean, I mean this sincerely. Like your videos they're very professionally done. So
Thank
even
you.
if it's not your profession, I wouldn't know that from watching them.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Do you enjoy them more than performing live since you can have more control over every aspect?
I'm proud of them. Like in hindsight, I'm proud of them. I can look back on them. I do like performing live a lot. I would like to incorporate both of those things together. But for me, I'm usually the type of person that I just, whenever someone, plays a video of me on TV, I have to leave the room. I just don't like watching myself. I used to live with Helen Heels, and she used to watch my YouTube videos, and she actually would legitimately support me and watch me. But then I would hear myself in the living room on the TV, and I was like, can we not watch myself on TV? Because I hate watching myself or hearing my own voice. Even though I had a YouTube channel and a podcast, which is all that. It's definitely something I'm like, oh yeah, let me post this everywhere, because I usually don't like to do that. But that's like the one thing I knew, I think, compared to what was being produced at that time, I felt like my videos were a little bit, I felt like I had the right to be proud of them. So I figured that, the work speaks for itself. It's not so much, it didn't come down to like, if I did a split or a dip or all that stuff. It could be like, well, this is all basically coming out of my mind. So, and a lot of performers we know are like that have such a crazy vision, and they bring it to life in different ways.
Well, I'll say that and this doesn't come up a lot on the show, but sometimes it does. You are adjusting for the medium when you make a video, and a lot of performers, this is new for them, making videos, and some of them aren't adjusting they're performing like they would in a club on a Friday night, and it's like, well, you're not in a club on a Friday night, so maybe make something that fits what you're putting out, which is a video. So I can appreciate that, and the difference between the two, that you're dedicating to this and that you dedicate to live performance. So you said that you made this during the pandemic. Have you been up to anything else during the pandemic?
Well, during the beginning, when quarantine first happened in California and stuff, like I was home for like 3 months or whatever because I was out of work because the mall's closed. I work retail at a mall, and then so I had from I think was it April or March when it happened, through July, I think is when we went back. I remember it because it was right before we filmed Into the Draglands. I was like, oh yeah, I'll book this gig. Like it's fine. I'm like, nothing's happening. And then they were like, okay, we're going back next week. I'm like, oh, well, I have this gig already planned. So I had to request time off already. So that was before we closed the second time. So it was that. And then I just been back to work since September. Malls have been open, and people have been shopping nonstop. And it's kind of gross, but I mean, anyone working essential or people who've been working the entire time pandemic's been happening, they have, a better idea what's happening. Everyone's have their struggles. Either people don't have their business open and they're going out of business, or people who are working in business and dealing with stupid people. So, at least I have a job, so I can't really complain.
No, but I mean, if it's not as enjoyable to, if it's a job and not a career, I don't think maybe complaining isn't the right word. But I can understand you wanting something a little more fulfilling in terms of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's the fact that we haven't had time to do drag, or really most opportunities to do drag. It's made my the lack of the outlet has kind of made my perception of the idea of drag being kind of oh, I don't know how to do that. I can't really imagine. I'm literally wearing sweatpants, but not beneath this dress. But if I had to get into full drag body, I'd be I don't know how I don't know. Now I'm how did I do that? And how did I get enthusiastic to do that? And I'm I don't even imagine. People doing these silhouette challenges, getting in full body just for a 10-second clip. I'm it couldn't be me. But I think it's because I haven't been doing drag. I don't feel that kind of drive, because when I do it the most, that's when I'm most inspired. When I do it frequently, that's when I'm most okay, I got the hang of this. And the further I get away from doing it, it's I can do something else,
Yeah, no, and I'll say I didn't know people were doing the silhouette challenge in drag, but getting into
it in all kinds of ways.
Getting into body with not, because it's just your silhouette, right? So you don't have to worry about your clothes, you don't have to worry about your makeup, just a wig and your silhouette.
A lot of people don't know what a silhouette means. Apparently, they just think it means put a red light on and be in the dark, but where you can fully see their face and everything. I was I should only see the outline of your body, but that's. It is what it is. It's it's not hurting anybody. It's not. I like challenges that don't hurt anybody or do anything stupid.
Sure, the burden that you and I carry by knowing what a silhouette is. It's just in case anyone's watching, and this is a new term for them. It's just the shadowy outline of your body. You can't see any distinguishing details. Not even really any interior lines from that outside shape.
Maybe a highlight of a boob, or maybe a butt cheek or something, but the silhouette, the mystery of not seeing is what makes it sexy in the first place.
Yes.
That's what I think is what the whole challenge is. It's because they'll be in a sweatshirt, kind of scrubby looking, and then it'll just transfer into the doja track, and it'd be them in the bathroom. Part of me was I didn't even really think about people who can edit videos and stuff like that on their phone. And I'm how many people have red lights in their house? Because I have LED lights for my setups and stuff. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, I have that, but I'm like, oh, I forget people can actually like change the color filter on their phone and stuff, and I'm like behind and ahead at the same time. So I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I think as somebody with, if I may say, professional experience, it would put you kind of behind and ahead at the same time, because somebody's out there with TikTok just going like, "Hi, I like ice cream," and they might, have 300,000 followers, and you're like, "Well, I can make actual videos," so I can see that being you being ahead and behind, like you said. You mentioned Into the Draglands, and we've talked about that a little bit on the show. We had a couple of contestants on. Into the Draglands was a reality competition show. This is for the viewers, obviously, not you, Katana. You know exactly what it is.
it was.
Yeah. It was a drag reality competition put on by Helen Heels with competitors from locally, the Central Valley and Sacramento. Katana, you were on the show. What was it like filming? Because everything was done in 2 days, right? All your performances?
Yes. So there was 8 of us, and we got split into groups of 2 so we can separate the crowd, because it was still, COVID was still fresh and everything. And it was supposed to be 10 people, and it was supposed to be like 5 and 5, I think. And then 2 people had to drop out because they had prior engagements and stuff like that. So it ended up being 8 of us. So it ended up being like 4 or 5 of us in one day, and then like 3 on the other day, I think it was.
Wow.
3 or 4, but it was significantly less, it felt like. It was really nice just to be around people that I had missed at the time. At the time, it seemed like a long time to be away from them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, I haven't seen my friends. And then most of them are like from Stockton, and, it just kind of worked out that way. And we all ended up carpooling together a lot. And then filming was kind of, it was fun, but also it was difficult. And I'll always say, I really love doing Into the Draglands, and I had a really like safe run on it, and I didn't really, I came in basically second, so I have nothing to complain about really. But I do think that for all of us included in the cast, it would have been a different story if we weren't so constrained due to, the pandemic and stuff. Because like, say if it was a real-time weekly show, if it was like, we have a week to think of this challenge and we have a week to figure it out, or at least a couple days or something, we would have had very different outcomes, I think. Because like for me, I'm such a conceptual, like I need time to think about this. We had to submit all our music ahead of time. And for me just to commit to like, what was it, like 6 or 7 songs, and be like, okay, I'm going to stick with this idea no matter what else comes up, and whatever, no matter how good of an idea I get the day of, I can't do anything about it. So it was kind of like, that was kind of a frustrating moment, because I wasn't really necessarily inspired at that time, because it was during lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing these videos in between time, but then I like when Helen called me and asked to do it, I was like, I don't know, maybe, because I done a bunch of competitions in Sacramento specifically, and I've lost a lot of them. And I came in second place quite a few times too. And I was just like, I don't know. And it was a interesting thing, but then it ended up being really fun. Like the filming process was quite fun, and it was really well put together. Helen did a really good job, and like everyone who was working, like Taryn and all them and the crew did a really good job. We felt like we were like filming something. Like they got us food, drinks, and it was like free basically. So it was like a easy ride for us.
Right on. Now, and I'm not sure if the audience knows or even understands exactly from the way you explain it, because you filmed all the episodes and it was an elimination show, you actually filmed all of your numbers without knowing whether or not they would even be seen or cut, or if you. So what's that like? Like, was there a performance that you filmed and you thought, shit, that's gonna send me home? Or conversely, was there a performance where you were like, you know what, I'm okay with that one, it might win?
The only one that I was like, I'm really like hard on myself, and I'm like the worst critic of myself. So everything I do, like, oh, that was shitty. That was whatever. It was boring. And because I was seeing what everyone else was doing, and I was like, oh, they're doing like all these creative things, and I'm just doing the stuff I've already either done before or it doesn't make any sense. And the only one I was like, okay, like this is kind of different for me and it fits the criteria was like the Who Are They challenges, where like we had to look totally different who we were supposed to be. And I didn't really know that a lot of them were going to do like king makeup or like masculine makeup. So I was pretty confident in that. So that was like the only time I was like, oh, this is, you know, I like the way I look and I like my performance. I did have to film it twice, but that was the only one. And also like the Broadway one we did, I was pretty like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. Even though the judges didn't get my costume, was from the actual Broadway play. The fun fact though, I did mention this in the reunion, like very briefly, that it was kind of under wraps, was that I had to, because of my setup and because I'm pretty sad with editing, I was telling Helen before we even filmed, I was like, do you have anyone who's gonna like film this and make it look pretty and make it look more like, you know, a series and not just like clips put together and everything? And I was like, well, if you don't, and if the girls don't mind, I'll volunteer to edit them. So I edited every single performance because I didn't know who was gonna go home when. Helen edited like all of like the deliberation, elimination, like the commercial stuff and everything like that. The only thing I edited was I helped her edit the intro, and then I did all of the performances. So I did like 7 performances for 8 people. I did about like, you know, 48 videos or something. I don't know math. So it was something like that. But then each video took me about like a half hour to an hour to do. So I spent over like 40 hours working on those videos.
Wow, that's a lot of time. You mentioned the judging. Do you feel like the judging was fair? And I want to be hilariously transparent to anyone watching that's not familiar with it. I was a judge, so that's part of the reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had moments of like, not disbelief or like, I guess I didn't necessarily disagree with what the judges were saying, but it was all a matter of like perspective in the moment. And the judges didn't see how we did prior or after. So they were judging the episode for what it was.
Right.
And so I really liked that a lot of them didn't have like a bias, or they didn't seem like the type of way of this or that. And they're pretty hard on us. Someone like Mercury, I think, was my favorite judge because she was very on it for me about like being like real about like, well, this is that. And even though she knows us, she'll be like real about if something was hitting the mark or not. I'm probably saying that because she was being nice to me in that episode, but I enjoyed that part of it. You know, I had issues with certain things. A lot of the girls had issues with stuff because we weren't able to change anything because we'd already filmed it. So if they had a critique for it, it was kind of like, you know, we can't do anything about it because we filmed it already like a month ago. And I think a lot of people like had a love or hate relationship with like Taryn because Taryn was always there. So she might have developed kind of a bias, but I think that she was the most constructive as like the regular judges. Some of them were kind of like, I can't think of a word for it, but it was like
critical, maybe.
Not even that. It was more like the only gripe I had with my judging was during my Broadway episode when I was wearing the Sunset Boulevard costume, and they were like, I didn't really get the costume, but it was really beautiful. So it was kind of like they were being nice to me, but I was like, the costume was from their Broadway show.
Right.
And like you claim that you love the movie, but then I'm like, I only know this song because I found it on YouTube, and that's what the costume she wears in the show. And it's just a hat and a blazer and a skirt. So I was like, that's what she wears in the show. So I almost feel like if I had worn the turban or whatever, I didn't want to wear a turban anyway, but you know, if I had done that with the robe, it would have been kind of like, what else did I bring to this challenge other than, you know, I don't know. It was like one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but I was kind of like, whatever. But again, I wasn't in the bottom or anything, so I had no place to complain.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the judging being contained, I think that's at least how we tried to do it when I was on the panel. It didn't matter who it was or what else they might have done. All that mattered was the performance in front of us. So I'm glad that came through a little bit at least.
Yeah, it was funny because you did the comedy challenge, right? I mean, I haven't. Again, it's like it kind of
it blurs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was a comedy challenge that you were judging for, and I remember that was kind of like, that was the performance I took a risk doing, because I'm like, maybe they're gonna get it or they're not gonna get it, because it was such a niche thing, and it was kind of an inside joke with people around the area that had known that, because we had just done like a Chicago show, so I did like a Chicago themed number but with a twist to it. So I guess if you weren't really familiar with the song, you wouldn't know what I was doing. So I took a risk, and a lot of people were like, I thought it was really funny. So as long as people like, I had people supporting me off, in like the comments and stuff, that made me feel good. Even though I was in the bottom for it, I was like, well, it was a risk, and I knew it was a risk, so I took it. And sometimes they don't pay off, sometimes they do, and that was the case where I was like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess I did take quite a few risks now that I'm thinking about it, because I did that live stand-up thing that didn't work very well in my favor either.
Well, and so I also judged the live episode.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And I'll say, and I think I've been honest about this on the show before. Live stand-up is hard. It's really, really hard. It's the hardest art form I've ever attempted, and a lot of queens think they can do stand-up, but stand-up is not hosting a drag show. So I was really impressed with the attempt. With the that makes it sound like it wasn't successful.
It was my first try, so it was an attempt.
Okay,
like, it was my first try.
If that's okay to call it that, I was impressed with the attempt, with the what do you call it, the lob in tennis, whatever it was. I was impressed that you did it, because it is hard. It's so hard to do, to tell jokes. And that's the thing, when you're hosting a drag show, you can say, blah, blah, blah. And then I said chicken dinner, and the crowd doesn't laugh. And you can immediately say, you know what? Coming up next, Helen Heels. And everyone forgets about your failed joke, because it's just water under the bridge. But when you're doing stand-up, that's it. You can't throw it to someone else. You're there for another 3, 4, 5 minutes, and you just have to keep making it work. So I was actually really excited when Helen was like, oh, you're going to judge the comedy episode to me. And I was like, are people going to try? Is someone going to try stand-up? Because I don't like being the only drag performer in the area to do stand-up. So I was like, yes, someone else try stand-up. And then you did. So I really appreciated that. It's a risk. And so I hope it was fruitful for you, even if you didn't like how it was judged. I hope that at least you got that rep in, and I don't know, maybe you'd consider doing it again.
I actually thought that was one of the ones that I was pretty fairly judged on. It was just a hard challenge for all of us, because it was like, do something live, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't sing and I don't do anything else, so let me try something different that I've never done, that like, because I tell stories, like there's stories about Helen, there's stories about myself, and I tell them like the same way each time. So I'm not like rehearsing it, but I've had a structure of like when to say this and how to lead up and what details to include. So I was like, I kind of told this story, and people laugh usually along the way. And, and the story had Helen in it, and then people like who knew us, and it had like things like, oh, maybe like it'll be funny because people know us kind of, in the scene, and people who are watching us, don't know this story except for only a handful of us. So let me just out myself with this big, crazy story. And it was funny though, because I had talked too long. So like I talked for like 7 whole minutes straight. So I had to cut basically half my material out, and I had to edit it. And I got to pick which part was left in. So like my whole lead up story was kind of like leading into the whole like shitting in public story, but then I had to chop it out. So I had to like it would end up being very choppy, kind of like a YouTube video or something. So I was like, it's not my favorite presentation, but it's like, it was what I had to do within those 5-minute gap, or else it would not have made sense at all. So I was almost gonna be like, well, what if they like disqualify me or something because I went over the time limit. But I almost did it again, because I was like, well, I have other stories and stuff like that I might do at the finale, because the finale we had to do we had to redo our worst scored challenge. And for me, technically, numbers wise, that was my least scored, like my lowest score. And I was like, I can try it again, and then just kind of be like to kind of prove like it's hard to do stand up when there's no one to tell it to. So if I try it with a crowd, I can read the crowd and time myself better. Because if there's no one to be like there for the punchline, it's kind of just like, okay, well, here's the punchline.
Right.
Did you get it? Like, I don't know if anyone got it or not. But when and I was tempted to do that, and I was going to do a whole like retail themed one because I had just had so many stupid stories about doing retail. So like I had a whole like idea about like me playing basically my own kind of character, like a retail worker on their break, telling someone about like what happened at work, because it's just like really stupid. And anyone who worked in the retail business would know, it's kind of relatable content. So I was like, I'll try that. And then I was like, maybe that's not a big enough risk. What if I do it again and no one laughs again? And they'll be like, see, we told you you're not funny, So I was like, I'll just do this song I do at karaoke every few weeks, and then I'll just get points for nerve. Maybe I'll get like the respect, like, well, she did it live, even though I'm not a singer by any means. And looking back, I probably would have done that again. Like the finale was not my finest hour, but it was fun. And that's when I was like, I'm not winning this. I knew halfway through the show, I was like, this is not my day. I even tweeted about it. I was like, y'all, this is not my day. I'm not going to win.
Okay, so not during the filming, but during the live performance, you were able to
say, well, because
it
came down to that, because
sure.
there was some like behind the scenes kind of drama that like kind of like bubbled up at the finale and the reunion. But like immediately blew over after the whole blow up. It kind of like ended as soon as it was over. Like for me and Faye, like even though on the video it's very dramatic, me and Faye are friends. Like it never really skewed. It didn't really change anything between us, really.
So you're both alive. No one's killed anybody.
Yeah,
okay, good to know. Good to know. I like Faye, so I'm glad.
Because like there was other things involved. Like we had to do like at home challenges in the meantime from filming to premiere. So we had to like film like a commercial, like a QVC commercial. We had to sell like something, and then we had to make an outfit from the dollar store, and then we had to do like a storybook reading thing, and little things like that were kind of like in the background of the tension of like, well, me and Juliana really put effort into these things. And with the real, in the moment, like this doesn't really hold up now because it's over with, but at the time, people were voting for like, oh, who should win in the finale based on these videos, but they were voting based on popularity, and they weren't voting on like production value or like content or, whatever. So I was like, I'm pretty confident in my QVC one. The other ones I don't care, but as long as I get that one, I'm fine. But people were just like, vote for this person, vote for this person, vote for this person because I want her to win. And I'm like, okay. And it was pretty well known, and I was kind of like, that's kind of stupid. I mean, if I was going to win or lose, I'd rather lose on the right terms or something.
Sure. And
then leading up to the finale, I was like, watching how people were performing, I knew that Faye was going to win because that she was doing so well. And I didn't really think the videos, I think they actually ended up nixing that because it wasn't really adding up with the views. Like the votes weren't adding up with the views of the video. So it was kind of like, and it could be the same thing with me. Like I had friends that probably just didn't watch the videos and just voted for me because they wanted to. So I was just like, it is what it is. It's again, it was like over almost like not, I don't know how many months ago, but it feels like it was a year ago, but it was like last summer. So basically.
Right. Yeah. And I think I can understand people voting for their friends just to vote for their friends, but that actually is detrimental. Because you want to, as an artist, you'd much rather people vote on you for, and certainly don't mind them voting for you for whatever they vote for, but the quality of your work is what you might want to be judged on in that moment.
Yeah, I always like being judged by like my peers or whatever. And like the only times I've ever gotten far in a competition is because of a twist or because of someone else judging. Like the only reason why I got to like All Stars is like Slayground All Stars, which is a competition that Helen hosted in Sacramento. The only reason why I got to like top 2 of those out of like 16 was because I happened to fall into like a twist that was in my favor. So I've always preferred like a drag queen to judge me or something like that, other than like the audience vote. Because whenever it comes down to an audience vote, I'm already like packing my bag because I know that I'm not going to win because I'm not like the general club's idea. Like that's not just what they want, you know. And it's
yeah, I mean, same.
It is what it is, and it's you know.
Same. I am not. Like I hate when you're at a show and they put the hand over the queens and they're like this one, this one, this one. And it's like don't do. Let's just skip me. I know it's fine. somebody else won. I am okay knowing that. So you mentioned the live show. Now you are a great performer live. You host a show, Eves of Paradise. What do you miss about performing live that you haven't been able to do? And
me and Helen were talking about this the other day. I think I miss, and this was when I was in my rut about like, oh, like I don't even think about drag anymore because I'm just so over it, you know. But when I had to sit and think about it, I was like, I miss the community. We have a really like unique community, especially at Paradise, because our show was kind of like, we had very humble beginnings, and like especially whenever me and Helen or one of us would go to a different city like Modesto or Sacramento, people were like, oh, they're from Stockton, and like, you know, it was always kind of like a weird connotation to come from our city.
mm-hmm.
And but you know, like from me and Helen hosting our own show, doing our own music, you know, we do everything ourselves, and we learned, you know, the hard way what to do and what not to do when hosting a show or producing a show, because we didn't have a DJ, we didn't have a club promoter to help us promote these things. I had to make all the flyers, you know, and it was a tip spot. It wasn't a paid gig for like 90% of the time. So it was kind of like we only had what people would volunteer to come and perform. And then I don't know what happened. I think maybe Helen's breakout into Sacramento kind of like made it more of a, my stomach's growling, I don't know if you can hear it, but like I don't know if it made it a thing for people like, oh, maybe I should come out and watch this show. And we just kept doing this thing where we were just doing all these different types of drag. So it was just kind of more of a variety that people would come, and even the people who didn't know us would just come and just start showing up every Thursday, because it is such a small kind of, you know, venue that it's more chill, and it's not so much like a club, it's more of just like a bar. So it's kind of, you know, on a Thursday, because Thursdays were like the deadest night of the week. So that's why they gave us that night, because they're like, there's no karaoke, there's no, you know, hip hop night, there's no, you know, themed music nights for a DJ to be there. So it's just do whatever you want because there's no one there anyway. So
that's
we had, you know, to deal with that Thursday night crowd. So, you know, it's kind of weird, but over the, you know, it would have been our 8th year this year, I think, if we were still going, you know, I mean, we never quit. So that's going, you know, that's in our favor that, you know, we never stopped. We never got canceled or anything. We were like, I would say we were like the longest running local show without having to switch venues or switch hosts. I think it's me and Helen at Paradise for like the last like 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. And also you touched on another thing that I like to tell people is bars and clubs don't actually need us. If we can generate business for them, they like us, but they're still a bar. They'll be fine serving drinks. So that is important that you mentioned that, because they gave you a Thursday, and you guys really made something. You made Thursday the destination night. I mean, at least from what it looks like, because I've never been to Eves of Paradise, but it looks like you made Thursday the destination night, at least for watching a show.
Yeah, we definitely, it wasn't, you know, always like that. It would always be like, I would say like a roller coaster. Like we would be dead for a couple weeks, and then we'd be like, okay, we're gonna have a theme show. We're gonna have like an actual like set theme. We're gonna celebrate something, or, you know, a birthday show or something, and then it'll build up, and it'll be really busy on that one show, and then the next day it's like, you know, you got to start over again. So it's kind of like build up again, and then you know, people. But then we have our regulars, and it started up being like, you know, 3 people would always come. 4 people would always come, and then end up being around like 10 to 15 people that always show up, like Becca and all them. Mm-hmm. And it kind of ended up filling the room. And so even if we're not necessarily like getting a new crowd every week, the only crowd I really care for, the people who always come to support us on a weekly basis, you know, and because I'm just literally performing for my friends. Like, it's not even like a group of strangers anymore. It's just people I know are there. So if I don't really feel, you know, stressed to like mess up, I can be silly, it can be more fun. And I think I miss being stupid in public with my friends. When I'm anywhere else, it's always kind of like, is my hair on right? Is my makeup good? Is my, you know, and it's always like, I'm always so hyper aware of how I look or how I appear to people that it prevents me from having fun. And I think that's what I like about Paradise.
Maybe you could combine the two. Maybe you could combine the fun and the, you know, fun for your friends. I don't know how, but the fun for your friends and the anonymity. Because it is fun when your friends are in the crowd. It definitely raises, at least me personally, to a level when my friends are there. And it'd be nice if you could get your mind to do that for strangers. But yeah, a bar where you're used to the crowd is, I think, I'm really grateful when people like come back to brunch all the time. So I'm sure it was really exciting when you'd see them.
Anyone who comes to a show to see a show, you know, anyone who shows up or pays to come to see a show is like the prime, you know, audience member for me. Like, that's why I like doing brunches or dinners or something, because like they paid to see that. It's not like they came to drink and dance and they're just like, oh, there's drag queens on stage, you know, like that's kind of how the early days of our show was. There'd be just girls being like, when can we dance? We want to dance. And I'm like, you can dance after the show's done at 2 a.m. when the bar closes. And, you know, and so I really like, you know, appreciate when people want to, you know, come to see a show, and I'm pretty protective of them, and I'm protective of their experience. So a good thing of a big part of my before COVID, recent hosting gigs is like, you know, people are like, oh, you know, have fun, drink, do this. And then I started saying like, you know, consent is important. So don't touch people, don't fuck with people if they don't give you the consent to do that. And then it kind of became like a thing where like if we would see people, like if someone was bothering like a girl or something like that, we'd be like, no, that's not okay. You can't do that. Even though like I think because most of our drag queens or drag performers are they're not like the touchy-feely kind of performers, which is fine, I guess. You know, that's a type of performance, but I'm not that, because I don't want people to touch me. So I'd rather not do that to them. And a lot of people I know are not really into being touched by strangers in general. So, you know, for us having a safe environment for the audience is also important for me too. But, you know, as soon as someone's I think that makes people trust us. And then if people are being rude in the audience, like new people, the audience will back us up. It's not just us being like, you stop that right now. You know, there's no, you know, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
You know, no one's going to help us, because it's like a majority of people want like, oh, we want to dance. We want to do this. We don't care about drag queens. And it's like,
sure.
Sometimes you feel kind of helpless. You feel kind of outnumbered. And then, you know, you feel kind of stupid. But then now that we have kind of an established community, it's a lot more safer and more fun that way.
Yeah, no, I think you guys definitely do have your own. Sacramento has a drag community, but so does Stockton. Like, Stockton has an equally large drag community. I think. I mean, again, I don't know for sure, but it seems that way. And you guys produce such amazing numbers and talent and good people, so that's always awesome. When you prepare to be in drag, how long does it take you to get into drag?
It's funny because I was just thinking about this today, because I had all day to get ready, and usually nowadays I can get ready within an hour and a half to 2 hours, and be presentable. But today I was like, you know, I have to be ready by this hour, so let me start getting ready now. So I gave myself like a good 3 hour gap of time to get ready, and I feel like I'm pretty like presentable today. So I'm like, maybe if I took more time to get ready, like I used to spend like 3 hours getting ready. And because I work and stuff, it's a little bit hard to do that. But if I had the time, I feel like I'll spend a good 3 hours getting ready, because it's just, you know, more detail work and more finessing and stuff like that. Not stressing about being late, even though I'm always late. But, you know, I was
think
ready on time today.
I think you look more than presentable, and I noticed in the chat.
Oh, thanks.
Beautiful, even. And I noticed in the chat that Chelsea gave you her seal. Chelsea likes to come on and see the Queen's makeup, and though she can't be in the show today, I noticed that she said you're killing it. So if you get her seal of approval, you're doing great. She has extensive history with Queens, so 3 hours is a good amount of time. You know, that's I ask a lot of queens that come on the show how long it takes them, and most of them can do it fast if need be. But if the opportunity presents itself, why not take the time and actually make sure you have time and you're not stressed? So 3 hours is good. On the other side of the question, what's the longest that you've been in drag in one day?
I've probably been in drag the longest. I don't know the exact hours, but when I would be like, if I would perform at like, say, Stockton Pride, so I would probably be in drag by like noon, and then more than likely there's like an event at Paradise, and if I'm lucky, I'll get asked to perform like a number there. It's like the only time it would get really, really busy at Paradise is during Halloween, New Year's, and Pride. And I think that, and then maybe like the white party, stuff like that. But when they have like parties, but Pride was always like packed out the door.
Sure.
And so I would be in face, and then I'm not like really the type that can like take it off and put it back on, because sometimes I'm like, well, if I don't look that good, Helen can, like, when we used to live together, like, I think she would be able to get ready in the morning, like for a brunch, so whatever, take it off for like the day, and then she had a gig that night, she would get back in face. But for me, I'm like, no. I mean, my face has a shelf life, definitely. It's kind of crusty after a couple hours, but I would say maybe like 8 hours, maybe more, but 8 hours, I would say. Because sometimes I used to go to work in drag if I had a gig afterwards.
What's it like to work in drag? And so you said you work at a mall in a retail setting.
Yeah. And
what's it like to do that?
It's really funny because it's like, I'm always terrified to do it when it happens, because I've only done it probably like 3 or 4 times, and it's because like it was either Halloween time, so it was kind of like not as weird to do it, and there was also another time when we had like a Drag Race girl come, and I was like, I'm not gonna miss this gig, so I need to like be ready to go before, and as I had to like learn how to close the store when I was learning to be a manager. I had to be trained while in drag. But I mean, it's not really comfortable. It's really weird because you got like little kids that are like, are you a girl or a boy? And, kids are very upfront about that. But, and I would paint pretty like softly, like pretty girl drag. And it kind of taught me a lesson, though, because I'm just like, like any experience I have presenting feminine or presenting female in public is any trans woman's everyday life. So the terror that I felt is something that they feel on a daily basis. So it's like, it made me kind of appreciate my day-to-day life without living in fear.
Sure. That's
yeah.
What I was going to respond with is much more trivial. I was just going to say I have some store credit to your store. It's a chain, so it's not your store specifically, but and I don't know what to do with it, because even though I am an 8, which is very much a medium in women's sizes, at your store I'm like a double XL, and I'm like, but the clothes are not as cute. Like,
yeah,
they're so much cuter when they're mediums.
I used to get all my drag from them. I still get like my fishnets and stuff there, but most of the stuff I get there is my boy clothes and hair dye, and that's basically it.
I don't know what to do with my store credit, because I keep trying, and I'm like, no, that didn't work. It didn't look what I thought it was. It looks better on the model that's 106 pounds. So 8 hours, and you've worked. See, that's something a lot of queens haven't done is work their job in drag. A lot of queens bring something from their work. So like we had Liz on, and I asked her what she brings from her day job as a civil engineer into the drag world, and vice versa. Is there anything that you bring from retail into your drag, or vice versa, besides showing up, of course?
I would say A little bit. Now, it's hard because I've been doing drag as long as I've been working retail. Like I started the same year, so I've kind of evolved in the same way. You know, when I first started working retail, like I was very socially awkward. I had social anxiety. But when I would get in drag, that wouldn't really be a thing. But whenever I go to the bar as a boy, I hate it. I get so anxious, and then I get really nervous. I don't know why, but I'm always like that. Any crowded situation, like crowded hallways, bars, stuff like that, unless I'm drunk, I'll get really anxious and I'll be like, I hate being here. Even though I used to be a dancer and stuff like that, I would be more comfortable on stage than in the crowd. But I lost my train of thought there for a second. I guess I have been more comfortable, working with people, I would say. I mean, my customer service is a lot different now. Like dealing with customers or patrons, it's funny because like I'll take what I can't say at work and say it to people at the bar. Like if someone's being rude to me at the bar, I want to like cuss them out and do all this stuff. But in retail, you can't do that. And sometimes I get it mixed up. Sometimes I'm like, well, I'm gonna say something back to this person because they won't read a coupon or whatever. But I'm like, oh wait, no, I'm on the clock. I can't say that. It's not gonna be nice. And I guess it's taught me a little bit of patience with people. It depends. Like, it really depends on the situation. Sometimes I'm very like irritable, but
no, I get it because working retail can be like, oh, I bought these shoes, and I wore them to here, but I want to return them now.
I want to go home barefoot.
Like, no, you can't do that. They're on your feet. They're dirty now. So
nothing surprises me anymore with people. Like the human mind is a dark place. But I always feel like the same way that we're all built differently physically, everyone's built mentally differently too. So not everyone's going to be pecs and a chest, six abs, like the six-pack abs. Like everyone's not going to be completely there, and I know that I'm not. So
no, absolutely, I only have a 4-pack myself.
It's the entitlement, I think, that I just don't have the patience for. It's just it's weird because I'm like, it's almost so common that almost everyone experiences it. Like anyone who works food service or any customer service or retail knows that this exists. It's a common thing. Like Karens are a thing,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why isn't it not acceptable just to like talk back to them? Like, why is it not acceptable just to like let people know that this is not right to do? And for me, it's funny because it never happens to me anymore. But when I keep waiting for someone to like cuss at me or for someone to like yell at me or something, because I'm always going to be like, I'm not going to help you now because you're yelling at me. But no one ever does it to me. But they'll do it to my associates, and I get very like annoyed, and I'll be like, see, I don't know if it's because they know I'm a manager or something. I don't know. It's really weird. It's also being like a man, like a cis man working in a workplace that's a majority women, and seeing how women get treated, even though you're superior. It's very interesting to see how people behave, and on both sides, because sometimes I feel like people would be nicer to women in public, but a lot of times they're just as rude to them as they would be to me. As I'm like, yeah. Also, men can be creepy too.
A lot of it sounds like a lot of your customers have the boldness of a drag queen, yet they're not a drag queen. They're just a retail customer. So that's an interesting place to find yourself, when you can turn around and go to the bar and actually say what you want as a performer. I never thought about that.
Actually, the way you just mentioned it just now, it's like I have taken, I guess, well, it goes into my common knowledge that since I've been working retail and I've learned how people can be really stupid,
Mm-hmm.
it's made me more self-aware about stuff. Like even when it comes down to like just shopping, like I know how to read a coupon now, and I know to like look at signs. I know to look where lines are going, and I know where to look where it says register open, registers closed, or things like that. So like you take those like very, very like, common knowledge things that people don't look at, and I'm like apply that to everything else. Where like I kind of understand how things can be, I don't know, like I understand when some things are kind of weird, but when I see like during the pandemic, especially when people don't know how to line up in a line, it's literally drawn on the ground. it makes me wonder about people sometimes, and it makes me feel a bit better that I'm like, at least I know enough from working retail to look on the ground to see if there's a line or to look at a sign,
or even just not get mad if somebody points it out. Just be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, didn't notice. Let me get in line.
Yeah, and it's something like that. But also, I think it might be because we started at Paradise without being paid and doing all our stuff ourselves. Like that was more influential on my development as a drag queen. Not so much like someone who was in a bigger city that was able to get paid for their first gig and just turns in their music and just shows up and leaves whenever they're done. So it's like, it's different things like of all those natures, because I've had to manage on different levels. Like I've had to manage drag queens and I've had to manage retail associates. So it's kind of like, and I'm also non-confrontational, which is not good as a manager. So it's kind of, it's put me in a lot of awkward positions.
Well, I don't know if it's bad, but I do want to point out this is definitely something we talk about on the show quite often. Your first gig as a drag performer or a comic probably isn't going to get you paid. So if that's what you're in it for, sorry, because you'll be lucky, and when queens do get paid, I'm always grateful to make money from performing, but that's not how it is all the time. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wonder. I don't know. Actually know who watches the show, and a lot of people start the two worlds that I have stiletto stripper heels in, the comedy world and the drag world. Neither one is really like a get rich quick scheme, but a lot of people approach it as one, and it's like, oh no, honey, it's not gonna make money for you.
Yeah,
really.
I learned that kind of like especially when I did YouTube so early on, like 10 years. I started 10 years ago of YouTube, and I learned, even though like you can put like time and effort into your stuff, if you're not at the right time, right place kind of moment, you can become a star in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to wait for that, and just wait for that to happen. But it won't happen for everyone, and you kind of have to just be like, oh, yeah, okay, now I have to actually just focus on like people appreciating me for like the integrity of the art or whatever. It's not like you're gonna get a viral video, and it's just funny because I really did think that my videos would kind of take off a little bit last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the Lady Gaga one, but they didn't. Like, I think the making of has more views on it than the actual video itself does.
Well, and videos on YouTube can be so fickle. You don't know what's going to go. And I want to say that we've talked about, yes, I know Chelsea and I have actually talked about this, because she is not only a comedian and a performer, but she also she makes cakes, like designer cakes for people. Mm. And one of the cakes that she made was a fondant cake with a tiny, sad, flaccid dick on top. It was for another comedian's like happy divorce, like, yay, you're finally divorced. And so all of the sexting that the comedian's ex did to his now girlfriend were on the cake. Like, Chelsea put them on the side of the cake, and then his like limp dick was on the top, and the cake said, bye, limp dick. And
oh my gosh,
that cake went viral for her. Like, millions of people saw that cake, and it went across the world and back. And she, I don't want to say she's built her business on the limp dick, because she certainly had one before it, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt her to make a limp dick cake, and it shows her artistry in a way, but also it's not what you expect. Sometimes you cough during a number. I don't know. I'm making up a scenario. Mm-hmm. You'll cough during a drag number, and that's the one that gets like 300 views. And you put your heart and soul into another one, and like 20 people like it, and you're like, well, it was funny when I coughed, but like the other one I meant for you to like. I'm glad you like me, but can you like me when I mean for you to?
Yeah, it's just really funny because for me, I'm not like a outspoken person, and for a drag queen, it's kind of like it's taken a type of way. Like when I was branching into the scene, a lot of people are like, I don't think Katana likes me, Or they'd be like, Katana's like stuck up or whatever because she won't say hi to me or whatever. And I'm like, one, I can't see you because I have glasses and I don't have prescribed contacts. So I usually can't see you from across the room. And two, I'm just really shy, nervous, and I'm just focusing on my performance. I'm not the one to walk into the background and be like, hey, everybody, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, at Paradise I am because that's my home. But like, unless I'm with certain people, I don't feel comfortable just doing that. And not like, I don't feel comfortable being with them. I just don't feel like they want to hear that or I need to do that. We're all just, you know, getting ready to do our thing. When we're done, we can do that. But I remember early on, people were just like, I don't think she likes me, or I think she's a bitch because she won't like talk to me or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And doing YouTube, early on, I was very timid and very like, so I'm going to do this makeup look today. And yeah. And that's not really like entertaining. And I understand that people don't gravitate towards that sometimes. Even me watching, I'm like, how were people watching me back then? Because a lot of people are really nice to me on YouTube and were like, oh, you're doing so good. And I'm like, thanks. But I don't, now looking back at it, I was like, I really wasn't though. Like my old videos were not it. Well, and like when I see people who are just naturally charismatic, I'm just like, I'm jealous of that. I'm very jealous of people who are just naturally just over the top and just, you know, star quality people because of just how they're built, like DNA, you know, that's just how they are. Whereas, and then there's some people who are just like, they'll get viral for falling asleep on camera or something, you know? So I'm like, I don't know, whenever that happens to me, if it's because I like, you know, my shit story somehow branches out 10 years from now, I'll be like, this girl shit herself at us, you know, whatever. I'm like, as long as I get that moment, I'm going to be like, okay, I did it. I experienced it, the viral thing.
Sure.
But it's frustrating and it's kind of, you know, discouraging when you're really, really trying and then seeing people do something and then they just take off because of that one little thing.
Right.
It's kind of like it's hit or miss, but it's any art form, any performative thing, any, you know, competitive field is going to be like that. You know, it's like how people who do drag race are all of a sudden praised for being drag queens until, you know, when they're on the drag race. But, you know, I didn't know who they were 10 months ago, and I couldn't give two shits. And I haven't watched Drag Race since last season, and I don't really give two shits, really. And it's just weird how invested people are in that kind of thing.
Very. So you said you're not I'll use my own words, and you can stop me if there are better words, an overly gregarious, outgoing drag performer, at least behind the scenes, but you have a podcast. Is the podcast easier because it's just it's more intimate, or is it a way to kind of get to that sort of like, no, let's be out there, let's put ourselves out there?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I did like all of like 8 episodes of my podcast, and then it just was dead. And then, but I've always been like a talker person. Like when it comes to like things like this, like I can talk about anything for hours, but that's not always what people expect from a drag queen. And sometimes people don't connect because like I can talk to my friends at work about like WandaVision or like things like that or specific topics. But like people don't go to drag shows for that, you know, like they're not going to be like, I want to hear your opinion about these topics. So it's like, you know, with me and Helen and a bunch of my friends that we have very specific like niche interests that we'll talk about. And it's, for me, my podcast was overanalyzing because I always overlook everything, or not overlook, I guess opposite of that, overanalyze everything, overindulge in things that no one cares about. Like, I remember I went on a whole thing because on Grease 2, like I pointed out like all the inconsistencies with Grease 1 and Grease 2, and now because I love Grease 2.
I think that's fascinating though, and
yeah.
Also, if like I'm here, like if you want to talk about Wanda, maybe not right now in this interview, but if you want to talk about WandaVision for like hours, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So you're done with the podcast?
I mean, it never really ended, but it's really funny because the first time I did it, it was just, I think I was just audio. And then I did it again during pandemic. I brought it back, and then I started doing it with video. And then both times, my last episode was with Julie on a budget. So like I was joking like, oh, I won't do another episode for like a year after this, and then I didn't. So it just didn't really take off. And but it's funny because I do Twitch now, and I'm not like a, you know, only this type of streamer. I'm a more, I guess people call it, the kids call it a variety streamer. So I have other options in mind. Like I do want to do like reviews and discussions and whatever. And I've learned how to like broadcast things like on OBS and Twitch, you know, all that stuff. So I'm kind of a little bit more savvy with it now. So I was like, I don't know why I never just did these things live on Twitch. And I had to do it like on video because I only knew how to video edit. So I'd record all of this 2-hour long conversation and edit it down to like 45 minutes. And it was like really tedious, not really that fun. So I was like, if I ever do that again, which I'm thinking of doing, I'm probably just end up just doing it like on Twitch, just like a one-on-one chat or something like that. Because I've kind of just turned to doing like, I even do more makeup on Twitch than I've done YouTube in the last like year. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Cool. People should follow you. What's your Twitch handle?
Oh, it's Katana_Rei. So if you just go to twitch.tv /Katana_Rei. I just basically started like release. Yeah, I started streaming a couple months ago. So I do like video game stuff, but I do want to branch out to do other things. I just have to find a schedule, you know. But I'm on there like mostly almost every day.
Yeah, we have your Instagram handle underneath you right now on screen.
Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. Same thing. Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch are all the same. They're all the same handles.
Cool. So if anyone wants to find you on Twitch or Twitter, they can just use your Instagram. That's good branding to have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hosting. I should be hosting the show right now. I think the stream is probably hosting on my channel right now.
Oh no, I'm sorry. We can try to get to the rest of the questions. You've performed in so many venues and places. What's the most interesting venue you've performed in?
Interesting, I would say, like, when I sit back and think about, like, wasn't that a weird thing? We got booked, me and Helen got booked to do a private show at a party at this place. I think it was in Linden, which is, like, east of here. It's kind of like, I would say, like, how to compare it to a different city. It's like a small city with a bunch of orchards around it and stuff like that. Like kind of like, not like Lodi, but like, anyway, it's kind of out of the middle of nowhere. And we're like, okay, like we'll do it. Like just do a few numbers and for a party and get paid for it. And like, okay. And it was basically like, we were like, it felt very much like when you book a clown for a birthday party, you know? But luckily it was a group of like really cool people. I had like one hair just like floating in my face. And I won't really go into detail about like why it was so weird because, well, let's just say me and Helen's dressing room was the people's bedroom. Uh-huh. And as we were getting dressed and stuff, we kind of started noticing things like on the walls and it was kind of like, are you seeing this? And then I don't know, I don't want to like, because they were really nice and I've seen them since. So I don't want to like be like, oh yeah, they're so weird. It just was different and it was interesting. So I would say like performing at someone's house for a private party and the party they were celebrating, their school's, their school, I think high school's jazz club did a fundraiser and they like made a bunch of money or something. And they had a party and it was like a group of like 8 people. And then we performed for them. And then it was cool because they had like a outdoor patio and they had like a pizza oven and we ate pizza afterward. It was really cool. It just was very, one of those like interesting.
Yeah.
That's definitely the word, that interesting. I'll tell you about it more if I receive in person. I'll tell you the details.
Okay. Different from club work.
Huh? I don't know. You just asked me a question. I didn't hear it.
Oh no, I kind of capped it. I just said it was much different from club work.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Very much.
Do we have time to ask more questions, or do you need to get going for your?
Oh no, I was just saying that I'm hosting the Stab comedy on my channel right now.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you for that. I hope your viewers are enjoying the interview.
I hope so.
What's the craziest performance that you've ever given?
Okay, let's see. It's so funny how many I forget that I've done. Craziest. And it's funny because some of them might seem crazy to other people, but not crazy to me.
Right. Well, in your opinion, what's the craziest?
That's a hard one. See, I feel bad because most of my numbers are very safe and very like, even if they're conceptual, they're very like, that's what it is, and it's not that crazy.
It doesn't have to be.
I did one. I guess it's kind of like a memorable one, but it's pretty funny. Is that I did a number for Faye's birthday. It was like a Faye, like kind of like a weirdo, like weird creepy birthday party thing we did. And then we all did like weird numbers. And I just I did the song "Chicken" by Alaska Thunderfuck with Miss Fame, and I just ate a rotisserie chicken on stage.
Okay,
and it fell on the floor too, and I ate it off the floor. That's people were like, I can't believe you did that. But I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of weird stuff where I eat stuff. Like if you give me something from the audience, if I know you, I'll eat it. Bijou Bentley actually gave me like one of those like tiny tacos from Jack in the Box that had fallen on the floor. And then my friend told me, oh, give it to Katana, she'll eat it. And I remember seeing one on the ground before. And then I remember in between the sets, Bijou's like, oh yeah, I ran out of tacos and I'm hungry. And so in the second half, when the taco appeared in the hand, I was like, oh, I'm gonna eat this taco. And I ate it and it was cold and I was like, oh, whatever. And then I thought about it, I was like, I think I just ate a floor taco. And pre-COVID life, I used to eat a lot of weird stuff on stage.
Will you do it post-COVID, do you think?
Probably.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't know if I'll eat off the ground, but I mean, it's funny, like, I think anyone who does, like, things, like, I guess when you see something performance art-wise, you're like, oh my God, how are they doing that? Or how are they not, like, throwing up or something like that? Or when people do, like, those, like, kind of, like, self... I don't want to say self-harm, but like those like like when they staple themselves or when they pierce themselves or stuff, there is like an element of like, the adrenaline that like you don't really think about it. And I've never hurt myself on stage, but I've like eaten random stuff and I've done stuff. And I'm like, if I wouldn't have done that if someone was just to be like, here, eat this. But then in the heat of the moment, it's like, yeah, I'll eat it. I'll do that.
I guess I'm getting a reputation for drinking anything anyone gives me. But I haven't eaten anything anyone gives me. What is the coolest thing about doing drag, in your opinion?
The coolest thing about doing drag is there's a lot of things. Like I would say inspiring people, inspiring women in particular. It makes me kind of sad when women come up to us or if me and another, like probably say like a cis male performer, and then they're just like, oh, like, I wish I was beautiful as you, or I wish I could do my makeup like you, and I'm a woman. And I'm like, you can. And I'm like, you don't have to feel bad about yourself. And like, if you sat 3 hours in a makeup chair, you would look 10 times more better than I would,
Yeah.
And so whenever like it makes someone feel like, oh, I want to try that, I want to do something, I want to put makeup on tomorrow, or I want to do this, like I like that. That's probably the coolest part. Or like also like meeting like young people, because younger people are so much less cynical about drag, and they're a little bit more like just excited about it. So like I always love doing like the like either proms or like youth performances. I love doing those because the kids are like way nicer than adults. So
welcoming,
I'll do that.
I'd say.
Yeah. Always. And I'll always do, whenever I'm available, I always volunteer to do those things because it's so much fun.
Yeah, they're I don't know if I want to say they're encouraging or they're just there behind you, younger people, and they're living for it, and you're like, wow, you're like 14 and you love this so much more than I understand. It's very that. Like whenever I do youth things, I'm like, dang, when I was like 16, I don't think we even had a Pride Center yet in Stockton. Okay. And when I first started doing drag, my first public outside, like out in the daytime number I did was at Stockton Pride's first festival. And that was when I first started. So like that's only how long Stockton's had a Pride for. So, it's only been about like 7 or 8 years. Okay. What is the worst thing about doing drag?
kids. I'm just kidding. No, like I would say it kind of ties back to the way that people can be really cynical when it comes to performing. Like audience members that just, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors when it comes to like drama and things like that. But usually for me, like, I have a general respect for all performers. I think most girls should, well, not girls, but like performers in general should be like, even if you don't like this girl or that guy or that person, like, if it comes down to them performing and the audience is being annoying, like, I get annoyed for them. Like, even though if I don't like a performer, I'll sit there and I'll watch them with my face towards them. I'm not gonna sit there and like talk on the side or do this, because I just like, as just a general like unwritten rule, I feel like I have to respect any performer, you know? And when I see people that just don't, it's annoying. Also, I don't know, there's like, for me, I think for every queen, king, or any performer is like very situational and individual experience. But in my personal experience, the worst part of doing drag was learning like how people can behave when it comes to like bookings, and when it comes to like the entitlement, like I said, like when it comes to being just a performer and not have to worry about producing a show, or they don't have to worry about you know, behaving professional and things like that. That's kind of been like, ugh, that was a rough patch for us. Even like me and Helen had a few like hard times, because I was like not really supporting Helen the way I should have been back in the old days. But it was really difficult.
We'll get back to Helen in a second.
Do we have to? Just kidding.
But right, Helen. How, you said you've been doing drag 8 years?
I can't math, so it was April 7th of 2012.
Okay, so yeah, we're coming up on 9 years.
Oh.
How has, but I don't, with the pandemic, who knows? I was telling everyone the other day it was my 3rd drag anniversary, and it was really the 4th, and I didn't realize it because COVID. How has drag changed since you started?
Oh boy. Well, see, I started drag on the bandwagon of Drag Race. I'll always say that like I started doing drag because I love Drag Race, and I didn't even think that was a thing until I watched Drag Race, you know? Mm-hmm. And again, not to shit on Drag Race, but like the way that that's influenced at least the American culture of drag, it's very like homogenous, and it's very like you see the same thing in a lot of people. Like I feel like most larger cities have like the same cast, you know, except for like Chicago, because Chicago has like the best drag in the country, I feel
Really?
like.
Okay.
But I mean, luckily at least the people I surround myself with, like people in Sacramento, there's such an individuality between all of them. But there's a big, like, I guess, this class of drag queens that are just doing like the same thing because they feel like they have to look a certain way. And I know it's a thing because I know that when I have issues with my like self-identity and as a drag queen, I'm like, oh, like I like that wig or I like that look. But it's like, do I like it because everyone else likes it, or do I naturally really like it? You know, like, do I like Marcel Wave wigs because they're big on Drag Race, or do I feel like I need that because this famous drag queen has it? Like, you know, and that was like the one thing I remember, like, oh, the big wavy waves. Like, I remember that being like a big thing around like season 9 and stuff. And I was like, do I like that? Or is it because almost all the drag queens on the show have that, and I feel like I should have a big teased up curly wig? And when you have to like, you know, be self-aware of that, it's pretty weird when you see everyone else. Like, I always say it's like the Matrix, like how everyone's plugged into like the Matrix and everyone's doing like what they want to do because the simulation tells them to do that. But when you get unplugged from it and you see it and you just see a bunch of pods and people just like plugged into it, it's like it's pretty funny because a lot of people I know, let's say in that metaphor, they're not plugged in, they're doing their own thing. And I mean, it's not like I don't want to devalue their drag, like this certain kind of drag queen. Because I say drag queen because it's mostly drag queens that do it. But it's just kind of like, that's great. You look lovely, but like, what are you bringing though? You know? So it's like, I feel like it's gotten a lot more mainstream. Like, drag isn't weird anymore, and I kind of miss when it was weird. And I wish wigs were wiggy. Even though I'm sitting here with a lace front wig, like in person, you can definitely see the lace and everything. But I wish wigs looked fake again, and I wish like things were just, I guess, more outrageous. But I don't know. Everything's become so like commercial and normalized that it's like, I don't know where like that uniqueness of drag, you know, what I don't know what that is anymore, because it's just different. That's why people are gravitating towards Drag Race UK or like, you know, Canada or like Thailand, even though no one talks anything about Thailand, because Thailand was doing a lot of interesting stuff on their season. People just don't feel the need to watch it because they're Asian probably, but you know, it's just like, but then on Drag Race, I just feel like it's one of those things where you see the same archetype of every season. Like there's always like that kind of girl, that kind of girl, that kind of girl. And they're never trans women, by the way. And then, you know, it's like, that's the thing that I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know why everyone from my generation of drag doesn't really grasp that idea of like, this is fake. Like Drag Race is not what drag is. I understand when like kids don't get it, or like younger people don't get it, or people who don't do drag don't get that Drag Race is kind of like a false idea. Mm-hmm. And they still worship RuPaul's the way, like now, like they still like support him and the show and what they do. It's kind of weird. Like I kind of feel like drag has kind of gone on without me, but I had to remind myself like that's not what drag. That's not what drag is. Like drag is my, you know, my friends. My drag are like, you know, is what my friends are doing is drag. That's not to worry about, you know, what's on VH1 or, you know, YouTube necessarily. It's, you know, as long as people are still doing unique things, it should be fine. But it's gotten a lot, you know, homogenous is the word. It's like it's all the same.
That's a fair assessment. I can definitely see that. Okay, so I got some inside information from Helen. You were on a dance crew?
Yeah, if you want to call it a crew, yeah.
How long did you do that?
So it was when I started dancing. It was my senior year of high school. It was 2009, mm-hmm. And it was on a dance team. That was more of the crew because there's only like 6 of us. So that was like in high school, like back when America's Best Dance Crew was a thing and all that stuff.
I was gonna say ABDC.
Yeah. I say ABDC, but I wasn't sure people would know what that is, you know, because it's been a while.
People might not, but I do. So.
Okay, cool. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that. That was the first time I started dancing like at all. My friend who actually does drag still in LA, Dusk, they started it, and then they were my friends. So I was like, let me audition and see if I'm good enough. And I think they let me on because they knew me, but I would try to say that, I was like decent, you know. And that was like the only thing I've ever done in my life that was like out of my box. Like I've never done sports. I never did anything, no Boy Scouts, no band, or, you know, I didn't do anything team related. Mm-hmm. I didn't do karate, you know, I kind of wish I did. You know, any of that stuff I never did because I just was doing my own thing. And dancing was the first thing I did as like a group thing. And then I really loved it. Again, it was kind of like the same thing with drag. Like it was the bandwagon of like, oh, dancing is big right now. And I graduated high school. I went onto this dance team based in Stockton. They're based at University of the Pacific. They're called Rhythm Inc. I don't know if they exist anymore, to be honest, but I don't really follow them. And I was on that team for like 3 years, I think, 2009 through 2011. So like 2 years. It felt like a long time, but it was only like 2 years of my life. But it was like, I always say like dancing was like the best years of my life. And even drag still does not compare to the feeling of performing with a group of your friends that are basically your family at that point. Like it's not as fulfilling as dancing was. So I'm still trying to reach that, 8 years later, I'm still trying to find that kind of like feeling of like, this is really fulfilling, and I'm not getting paid. I'm not doing anything. It's just us being performers. And I'm not sure why I never reached that point with drag. I think because when you're on a team, it's a family, and when you do drag, it's mostly a solo show. So it's, but then when you have a cast like Thieves of Paradise or, small communities that we know each other pretty well, like you get that feeling again when you perform with them on a regular basis. But I was a dancer. It was like modern hip hop. I didn't even know what the genre of dance it was, but whatever that ABDC genre of dancing was, like we did a World of Dance, and we were going to go to Hip Hop International in Las Vegas, but we didn't go because of like financial stuff. Mm-hmm. We weren't like that good, mind you. It's just that we knew a lot of people in like the scene and in the industry that were really nice to us, and
sometimes that's what matters.
Yeah,
that's being good.
Yeah, and it's funny because I met Princess Bitch. She's a performer in Sacramento. We met through dance a long time ago, but even funny enough, I met Helen through dance. I met her. I want to say it was 2010. It was like a year after I joined, and I did not like them at all because they were I always tell people this story because I'm like, whenever I met Helen, I did not like them. I thought they were condescending, and I thought they talked to me like I was 5 years old, and blah, blah, blah. And so whenever people talk to Helen, they're like, I don't like Helen. I'm like, give her a few months. You'll get used to her, and you'll find out that's just how she talks. Don't take it personally.
That was actually my next question. This didn't come from Helen. This came from someone sitting nearby when I was saying, okay, Katana's coming on the show. Give me some dirt. Someone said, well, she didn't like Helen at first. Ask her about that. And I'll agree. And I never disliked Helen personally. I saw someone very similar to me, very businessy, brass tacks. What do we need to do to make this work? Let's not waste time, sort of person. And so I kind of respected that, I guess. I mean, now that I know her, I don't respect her at all. But I do love her because I can appreciate who Helen is, and in a way that you don't get to know until you really know Helen, better. So I can understand. Different path for me. Didn't hate her, just didn't know her. And the more you get to know her, the more you're like, okay.
It's funny because I met Jonathan before Helen was even conceived years prior. So, Jonathan was I think because it's just that stupid thing where gays just feel like they have to not like each other or something. I don't know. It was really weird. I think it's because we were both gay, and in the moment I was territory. The gay one in the team, and right. I don't know. I felt threatened, or something. But we just had too much in common to not be friends, and it just kind of ended up happening that way. And then after I stopped dancing, because I had to become an adult and get a job, Helen was like the only one who kept in contact with me, and we would talk about Drag Race, and this was during season 2, I think, and we would watch it together. This is over a course of a few months. We got closer and closer. And we would just talk about drag, and this is before Drag Race was even really a big phenomenon. Right. So we would watch it together whenever it came on TV, and we would talk about it. And then a couple years later, it's I thought of the idea oh, maybe I want to do it. Maybe I want to try doing drag. This is after I got over the whole guys won't like me if I do drag because that's not masculine and shit like that. So Helen really encouraged me because I was already doing makeup on YouTube. So I was like, that's the next step. I was a dancer, I did makeup, I should just do drag. She helped me buy my first pair of shoes that were way too big for me because I was told, oh, your shoe size is too big, 2 sizes bigger than your men's size. I'm like, I wear a size 12. So I was like, okay, I'm 14, I guess. And they're that much away, that much distance away from my the back of my foot. So I had to wear them with hair ties attached to them to keep them on my feet. And she helped me buy hair for my wig because I thought that it'd be cheaper to buy tracks and make a quick weave than it would be to just buy an actual wig. And so I had she helped me buy that. She helped me buy like my outfit from like Goodwill, and like she basically sponsored like my first performance in drag. And then a year later, that's when the whole like me performing in clubs became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were talking at Denny's one time, and we were just like on the way home. She was like my entourage, and we were talking, and I was like, why don't it would just be easier if we just had our own show in Stockton. And even then, it was like it seemed kind of like, oh, that will never happen. It's like, do you think that people would have a drag show at Stockton? I know they've had community drag shows like with the court system and stuff there, but not like a regular drag show.
Right.
And that kind of, snowballed into Helen, because she knew the owner. Like, we have a really good relationship with the owner of Paradise, so we're lucky that way. So she talked it over, and then they gave us Thursdays, and then we started performing. I started performing. It was me and Jonathan. Jonathan was like kind of like the DJ, so he was like the banter, like the co-banter person.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple months later, Helen came out, and it's so funny because people feel like, oh, Jonathan, are you ever gonna do drag? And then I'd be like, no, he doesn't have the face for it. And I always tell people that I didn't think he ever would want to do it because I just never thought he would want it to. But she found her face.
She found her face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really quick, before I ask the last question from Helen / Jonathan, we're going to do a dating episode next week. And you mentioned it can be difficult for a drag queen, a cis male drag queen who's gay, to date because other gay men might not be into that. Do you have any questions that you want me to ask the dating? And it's 2 women that I'm doing the show with. But do you have any dating questions that I can ask them that maybe they can relate to? It's about dating performers. That's where we're going to come at it from, and that's kind of related to dating a drag queen.
Well, I mean, I'm lucky that I've been in a relationship for like the last 4 years. Me and my boyfriend are going to be. Our anniversary is actually going to be next in 10 days. So we're going to be together for 5 years. But from what I've heard from like his experience is like, it is kind of difficult, especially if like the performer that you're dating is well received and liked. Mm-hmm. Kind of being put to the side or like being kind of, just kind of awkwardly being there while you have to interact with people. Because like I don't always introduce them to people. Okay. Because for me, I'm like, well, I'm never going to talk to them again. It's fine. Like, you don't have to meet them. I'm doing you a favor. You don't have to meet this person because you don't have to be nice. I'm just being nice because they're talking to me right now.
Right.
But I would say like something along the lines of like, how do you feel about like the audience or like the fans, or depending on how, successful that performer is, like how would that affect your feelings? Like, would you get like jealous of the attention or, things like that? Because I don't know, my mind always goes to like rock star or like things like the groupies, like, the groupies even exist really anymore. I mean, I don't know. I had like an 80s perception of what like fame and the spotlight does to people. It's kind of
right. Funny. That's a great question actually, because I'm going to do this kind of show with Chelsea, actually, a comedian who's successful, and dating is difficult, not just because she's a comedian, but also because she's an intelligent, woman, a 40-year-old woman. And then also her friend who is married to another comedian. So the friend represents the person that dates the performer, and Chelsea represents the performer. I just represent the person that can't get a date for their life. But so that's something I'll bring up, because that's a really interesting thing. Is how do you? I'll ask Heather. Heather is the wife of the comedian. How do you feel when your husband Miles is meeting people? Like, and I'm sure at some point she understood, like, oh, he's just meeting people after a show. It's pointless. But maybe there was something at first for her that she had to come to terms with, like, am I not important enough to introduce? So thank you for the good question.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Well, it's funny because also my boyfriend was a fan of Katana before he knew who Robert was.
Oh.
And it was funny because he like technically he's a straight man, and I always would, I don't know, but like for gays, or how like you would flirt with someone you have no chance with because you just think like, oh, it's you know, they're not going to take a type away because like they couldn't possibly take your advances seriously or
Sure,
something.
sure.
So we used to be like, oh, like flirtatious and be like, oh, Sean's my boyfriend. Sean, because he was a bar back at the time, and we'd always see him at the bar. And they'd be like, oh, like they're my boy. They're Katana's boyfriend. Like can't like canonically, like they're in the universe of Katana. That's their boyfriend.
Sure.
And then like a year later, we were dating, and now we've been together for 5 years. So like, you know.
Okay, so then he knew that you were